Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video. I go by Women Walking Away. My name is Kathleen and I like to talk about radical feminism and communication skills and writing and backpacking and being in nature and fun things. So today I want to talk about porn, and I've spoken about it in other videos, but I just want to actually have a bit of a rant here. This isn't going to be structured. I'm just really upset about the state of the world and the conditions under which young women are growing up. And I work with a lot of older women who grew up with porn from the 70s, and you'll always, find sort of a comment on, oh, women were natural back then. We talk about the bush and stuff like that, and they talk about their experiences with porn, and will often disclose to me that they enjoyed it, or that was something that they didn't have a problem with, and they didn't see why feminists were up in arms over it, especially now. And I have to explain to these women that the condition of porn now, as an industry, as the highest grossing industry on the planet, making the most money, the most capitalist industry that we're exposed to, it's not what they grew up with. It's not the same. And I hate to be the one to break it to these women, but the fact of the matter is, porn these days is violent. It's the theory. What's that saying? Porn is the theory and rape is the practice. Like, this is where young men are learning how to rape women. And there's so many issues with porn these days. The fact of not being able to say no to a scene, like getting to a studio, like the porn actor, the female porn actor will have signed a contract, and if she doesn't fulfill her duties of the contract, which is basically do whatever they tell her to, she doesn't get paid. And a lot of the times they'll use pieces of that film anyway. So basically you show up, you're there alone, or you're there maybe with your agent or someone who's supposed to be on your side, but just adds to the pressure because they're getting a cut of everything that you do, obviously. And then they have those couch scenes where they interview you before and after and say, like, what do you expect to happen today? And she'll talk about, I'm either like really nervous about this and I'm not sure, or I'm really excited to do this because it's something I've always wanted to do. And then after, like, seeing her completely brutalized, and a lot of what we're seeing is like forced vomiting and things like that. So she's like completely just been like ravaged on purpose by the male actors in the film. And then at the end, when you see her, mascara streaked and shaky, saying, oh yes, I loved it. I might have been crying, and I might have had, 1,000-yard stare, and I might have just been like frozen when it was happening, but of course I liked it. I love this stuff. And we've heard interviews of women who've exited this industry. We've read interviews where they say they have to say that. They are acting. They are still acting. Like, people don't understand. Porn is not a woman's nature. It's not what she wants to do. It's the demand. The demand says, I want to see this happen to women, and then I want them to say that they like it. So when you see the closing couch interview, like, you can't be convinced by her saying that she wanted it, because if she doesn't say that, she doesn't get paid. Like, it's an act. It's a job. It's so frustrating when people don't understand that this is that they have to say that. So the first exposure to porn for boys is, as I've read two different studies, but one of them is 11 years old and one of them is 7 years old. And I think it's pretty fair to say that as soon as you know how to Google something, you're finding porn. Like, it's just there. There's no way around it. I had a conversation with a woman who said that I wish that on my cable, I wish that I could, with my cable provider, block the porn channels that come up on the TV guide that everyone can scroll through and see. And I totally agree, and I hate that any young person can turn off the TV and see those sorts of titles, right? The misogyny is right in the title. The oppression is built right in for anyone to see, and that's even before you click on it to see what it's actually about. So I totally agreed with her, but at the same time I said, by the time your kid figures out how to use the remote control on the TV, they're on the internet, they're being exposed to this, and it's just as blatant, if not more so, because there's imagery when you're doing Google searches and you don't have ad block on, and the advertisements are always right there in your face. So you can do the small measures in your home to make sure that your children are exposed to this, but there's no, like, we're inundated. There's no opt out of this. We have collectively decided or been overruled, and this is the new normal. This is, you being exposed to porn at a very young age is just the way it is. And it impacts men and women differently. Like, men watch porn and they think this is what women want, because that's what women are saying, because they're being paid to say that. And they think women want to be brutalized, women enjoy pain. There's something intrinsic about women that says they want to be hurt during sex. So of course that's going to play over into the sex that they have and the sex that they seek out. But women are internalizing the idea that they're supposed to perform, because women in porn are performing. It is acting. So women act during sex. So men try to enact violence against women. So, and the stats for that are like something like 86% of scenes in porn contain violence against women, including things like slapping, spitting, degrading and abusive behavior. So this is not like some romantic buildup where the big climax is intercourse, where you may see a little penetration, but for the most part the focus is on, the long sensuous lines of the body. It's not like that. It's body punishing harm. So this is so frustrating. Like, people, I don't think everyone who I've explained this to didn't know how bad it was. And even my mentor, she thought I was something of a prude, and she went out and did some investigation, and then shared some of Gail Dine's work, and she was like, I didn't know how bad it was. And people don't know. So men are internalizing the idea that women want body punishing sex, if you can even call it that. And women are internalizing the idea that this is what they're supposed to want, and this is what sex is. And basically a complete disconnect from mind and body. So women perform for the gaze, like the male gaze. They, during heterosexual intercourse, like, it's not female body based. Like, it's not getting into your body and feeling integrated with, all your parts, your spiritual and your mental and your emotional parts, and with your physical. It's like a detachment from that. So women are having terrible dissociated sex all the time, because that's just what's become normal. And like, obviously another issue is the fact that we have, oh, my cat's gonna want to jump on this. Please, it's very tenuous. If you jump on it, it will be destroyed. Thank you. The things that we, oh, there she goes. I looked away for 1 second. Okay. I'm fine to just share the space. Oh my gosh, she's gonna start licking her belt. I need you to move, I'm sorry. The things that women do to their bodies when they appear in porn. So, like, we're not just talking about surgery. I mean, of course, like, surgery is the new normal for someone who wants to be in porn, and not just breast implants, because that used to be pretty much the one thing that you could be sure that female porn actors are doing in order to be in porn. But it's not. Like, now we're talking about labiaplasty. Like, that's actually really normal for women to think that there's something wrong with their labia, because in porn it all looks one way. And if it doesn't look that way in porn, then it's fetishized. It's like, the point of it is that there's large labia, or there's labia that looks different from the porn norm. You can't just naturally have a woman with labia that looks different from the porn norm and not comment on it like it's a fetish. It has to be highlighted and abused in some way. So women who have labia or body parts of any sort that don't meet the standards of pornography, which is pretty much every woman, internalize the idea that that's the way women are supposed to look like, and it's not. Women's bodies are as varied as fingerprints. Like, there's no one way to look like a woman. Like, different, like, labia that isn't neat and tucked and childlike, like, is beautiful and normal and wonderful and necessary. And the idea that we all are supposed to look one way, or it's only good if we look one way, is so misogynistic, and it's making women into cookie cutters. And it's this idea that we exist to please someone else's standards, and we don't. And having neatly tucked and shaved vulvas is part of pedophile culture and rape culture. Like, this idea that we should be perfectly shaved from the eyebrows down. Like children are hairless. Like, adult women have hair, and some adult women have more hair than adult men. That actually exists on a spectrum with a huge overlap that is somewhat contingent on your male or female body, but really that's a pretty loose arbiter of how much body hair you're going to have. Hair is wonderful. Body hair keeps bugs away. So, like, if you have mosquitoes or ants trying to get to you, if you have a lot of body hair, they're going to have a harder time. That includes things like crabs. Body hair protects you against certain STIs. It keeps you from having, like, friction abrasions or cystitis and things like that for your vulva. Body hair, like, on your legs or arms can keep you from getting sunburned on those areas, because the dark hair absorbs the light and your skin doesn't. And all sorts of other amazing things. Like, people don't realize, like, this serves a function still. This isn't just like, oh, cave people were cold so they grew hair. Like, this still serves a function. We still use it all the time. Yes, it does keep me warm in the winter too. That's a bonus. So I think my plea to people who are, okay, and then there's the arguments, okay? So what about feminist porn? So there's no such thing as feminist porn because there's no ethical consumption under patriarchy. So I'm sure you've heard that with regard to capitalism, right? There's no ethical consumption under capitalism. That doesn't mean give up and consume to your heart's content. It means change the system, destroy the system, build something new that makes sense and works for all women, and therefore all people. So you can't have feminist porn unless you don't have a patriarchy. Like, you can't use the tools that patriarchy has set up to subvert patriarchy when you're still, one, making money, because you can't buy consent. So you can't pay for someone to give you consent. That's coercion. It's financial coercion. Money is coercive. Therefore, you can't buy consent. Therefore, being like porn is a version of rape, and so is prostitution, because consent cannot be bought and sold. Money, if you make money a factor in that decision, then you're saying, I wouldn't consent to this without this factor, therefore it's a coercive factor, especially if you are in poverty. Poverty is coercive. So there's one argument, like the feminist porn argument. Like, I don't think a female CEO is a feminist just because she's making a ton of money. That's not what feminism is. You don't get to walk into an existing patriarchy, subvert a role, give yourself power and money, be in charge, and then say this is feminist because a woman is doing it. It takes more than a woman doing something to be feminist. Like, feminism means something. It means you're working toward the goal of women's liberation, and if you're continuing to cast women in these roles of sex object, then you are beholden to the patriarchy. You're doing the patriarchy's work for it. And, what about gay porn? And in my opinion, it's the same thing. One, lesbian porn is almost always for the male gaze, made by men for men, with women who actually don't want to have sex with women. And with gay male porn, like, if you watch that, like, they reenact misogyny a lot of the time. There's a lot of misogyny and woman hating in gay porn. The language that they use and the roles that they play out. So none of those things are free from critique just because they include women or just because they don't include women. Like, we get to critique all of these things. Anyway, I'm almost out of time on my phone's recorder thing. I'm seeing it run out at the bottom there. So I'll carry on this conversation another time. I'm really passionate about it. I'm so fucking frustrated. I'm so frustrated by this whole subject matter and the fact that people don't know what we're up against. So please do some research. Check out Gail Dine's work. Read the work of exited women, women who have been through this. They know what they're talking about. They're not lying to us. They're telling us their truth, and we need to listen.